The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters at Real Estate Marketing, Ardor SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today from the state of Idaho. Kelly Hanson is not only a realtor, but also an author, which we will be talking about today. He's been a realtor, a teacher, a mentor, a trainer. Kelly Hanson shares what he has learned in his 30 plus years in real estate. He's been a certified real estate instructor for 15 years for Idaho and the Coeur Association of Realtors for the Idaho Real Estate Commission. Kelly, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to have you. So, before we get into, I know we want to talk about your book. I think it's very important. I got to check it out a little bit, and I'm excited to talk about it. But how did you get started? There's a couple of tidbits about you I'm interested in hearing about. One, how you got started in real estate, and two, I thought I had made it a while. I've made it 32 years, but 50 years of marriage. That's exciting too.
Yeah. Well, we moved to Idaho 35 years ago or so. And my background was cattle ranching, logging, truck driving, those kind of skills. And we moved up here, none of those were available. I saw an ad in the newspapers that make $30,000 a year selling real estate. And I'm of a mind that I can do anything. So I called the guy and went and did an interview, and he said, all right, go get your license and come back. So I went to working at the sawmill evenings or nights and going to school during the day. As soon as I passed the real estate exam, I quit the mill and went into real estate full time, having zero skills in sales or communication. So that's kind of how I got into it. Kind of the old throw them in the pool and learn how to swim.
Baptism by fire, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So here you are. You're a realtor, and I guess you and I are closer than age than some. And I know back in, let's say the 80s for me, when you would start out, there was just a lot of picking up the phone, hand pressing, and, door to door. Is that kind of the route you had to start?
Right. My broker was big on cold calling, which I hated. And so I just took a flyer with his listing on it and went on knocked on doors. So that first year, 1989, for a year, I knocked on 50 doors a day, 6 days a week.
Whew.
And I love knocking on doors. I like meeting the people. It was almost 99.9% positive responses back in the day. As a result of that, I was rookie of the year my first year in real estate.
Oh, wow.
And another smart thing my broker did, because of my lack of skills, social skills and communication skills, he sent me to Toastmasters, which I joined, and I was part of them for about 15 years. And I just recently rejoined them to actually rehone my skills to do what I'm doing today to market my book.
Yeah, Toastmasters is a great organization. I've been had been a member off and on for the past 20 plus years. And I think they do a lot for folks. I find that young people aren't getting as involved, or at least on where I'm at, as involved as the past, and they really should, right? I mean, because I think a lot of the young people rely, I'm pigeonholing young people, but they rely on the internet a whole lot, and
right.
and don't like to get up in front of people. And we got a lot of introverts out there. That's all I'll say.
That's right. Well, I'm an introvert, but I tell people my outgoing personality is practiced and it's on purpose. And I learned that in Toastmasters. I could step up and before a crowd of 100 people, I've done this, and teach all day. But then again, I would rather just be home in a cabin with my wife and not talk to anybody for weeks. I'd be fine, just plumb happy with that. But I can step up to it because I'm just trained to do that, and it's on purpose.
Right.
So yeah,
it's about being prepared, right? I mean, that's right. What it boils down to. I think a lot of the fear of speaking, quote unquote, comes from just people not being prepared, and you got to be prepared. So your book. Let's talk about that now. I'm fascinated by it. Be Smart in Real Estate and 999 plus questions. We probably don't have time to go over 999 questions, but let's start with how did you get the idea for the book?
Well, it started in 1993. I got licensed in fall of '88, 34 years ago, September. And in 1993, I went to a national convention and I learned about a thing they called buyer agency, where you represent the buyers. I'd never heard of that before. So when I came home, I talked to my broker. I said, look, I want to represent buyers exclusively because I was terrible at listing property, but I was really good with buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And my perception was, if I'm going to represent buyers, I need to verify the information in the multiple listing service. Is the sewer hooked up? What's the zoning? And I started making a list. And that's really where the book was born. I started making this list, keeping track of it and cross-referencing that with every listing I had, because in the multiple listing books and now the net,
right?
There's that saying that information deemed reliable but not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guarantee it's not reliable, just because people are infallible, typos, etc. And so that's kind of where it started. And then pretty soon, of course, that list was just kind of routine for me. I didn't have to refer to the list to verify things. I just did it as a basis. Then 4 years ago, I was taking a BOLD class. That's a Keller Williams training class, an 8-week
Mm-hmm.
class. And the instructor says, all right, everybody, let's write down your goals for 5 and 10 years. And I'm sitting there going, crap, in 5 years, I'm going to be 70 years old. My goals are different than everybody else in the room. And then all of a sudden this light went on. Kelly, you got that book you've been wanting to write. And that's when I started dumping the time, research, talking to realtors all over the country, researching every state to compile the information that's in the book. So
really had to do some due diligence. So I see the book. I mean, is it a large part for sell by owners, or is it for everybody? Or, tell me about who the target market for the book.
Well, I originally wrote the book for buyers.
Okay.
Then I had a real estate coach 2 years ago says, no, Kelly, this is a realtor book. Although buyers can benefit from it, in the subtitle of where to get the answers, well, real estate agents are where to get the answers. Not that we know everything, but we know all the professionals. There's a list of 47 professionals listed in the first chapter of the book, people that realtors need to know, aside from the lender, the insurance company, home inspector, but there's, foundation people and roofers and contractors and radon testers and all this. There's this whole list of people that we don't need to know all this stuff, but we need to know who these people are to refer our clients to them if something comes of an issue. Time is of the essence. So if you're looking at the house and there's a foundation issue, well, you need to know a foundation expert to go look at that. And so that's kind of where we get the answers for that. So yeah, there's, when I started testing out the title of the book, interestingly enough, I had 1,000 questions in there, and older people didn't like it. They said, no, it should be all the questions you should ask. And then as I started A/B testing the title with their various people, and it turned out that people that were 40 years and younger, they liked 999 plus questions. The younger people, older people liked all. So, and I didn't want to say all because I thought there might be some liability. What if I missed one question? And
sure,
it's a liability thing. So that's how that title kind of come up with, except, there's 1,000 questions in the book. That could bring things to top of mind on all these different topics.
Yeah. So give me a couple of examples of questions that aren't being asked by realtors that should be asked. And like I said, we can't go over 999.
No, I got stories for lots of them. Here's an example from my own personal experience. 33 years ago, I sold a couple of home, the FHA loan on a busy street, but it was zoned commercial or zoned residential. And 7 years later, they called me up and said, hey, Kelly, we want to get a bigger house. We want to sell this one. In the meanwhile, the house that got zoned went to commercial.
Oh,
well, if Kelly had known back then, the comprehensive plan said that was going to be commercial someday. And I could have informed those people, say, well, look, someday this is going to be commercial. They may not have bought the house. They almost sued me. We did get the home sold, and they were mad at me forever. That's just an example of one thing. And there's, and like now with, in our part of the country here in the Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County area, there's a lot of growth. Cities are annexing properties like crazy.
Yeah.
And so if you were to, I would sell Tim a property right on the edge of the city, he wants to have chickens and a cow, an acre or two. And then 4 or 5 years later, the city decide to annex your land. Now you got to hook up the sewer. You can't have your chickens. You can't have your cow.
Right.
You would have liked to have known that that was a possibility when you bought that property. That's just a couple examples.
Yeah.
So, because
Go ahead.
well, go ahead. I just say at bizrate.com a couple of years ago, they had a survey and it was 44% of regular homeowners and 60-some% of millennials had buyer's remorse. They bought a house, they got in, moved in like that first weekend, like when I bought my home 33 years ago. That first Sunday, we hear boom, boom, boom. We hear airplanes flying over. Well, we were half a mile from an airport and 3/4 of a mile from a shooting range. I knew that because I was in the business. But I say, look, at my age, I could have served in Vietnam and had shell shock. And if I hadn't known that, I'd have been in that house and all of a sudden we can't live in that home. That's just an example out of my own personal experience that people don't ask the questions when they're looking at a home. You know, being in the business 30-some years, people just look at the house itself, the footprint. They don't look outside because I say location, location, location is a much bigger footprint than just the house itself.
Sure.
It's relationship to noises, lights, smells, wind direction, so many different other factors that people don't occur to them. So that is just some examples of things that just, the book is for realtors to bring it top of mind. And so if someone were to be looking to buy a house and they were looking for a peace of mind kind of a thing, and there was a stadium, less than a mile away, all that light pollution, traffic, people parking on the street, just examples like that.
Shoot, neighbors. That's top of mind for me. It's one of the things that that realtors sometimes don't think about is, you want to sell the house, it's great curb appeal, it's well built, you can go all down the line. And one of the biggest complaints that at least that I hear from others is, well, I wish I would have known more about the neighborhood and the neighbors. And
right.
I find that interesting on a, I guess, sociological level or a social level, because growing up, I moved every 2 years of my life, and I don't think we ever worried about neighbors. I don't think, that it was ever a concern. Is the neighbor loud? Does he or she sit out in their driveway, popping a cold one every night? But nowadays, you'll hear people all the time, what about the neighbors? What about the neighbors? And I think that's a societal thing for sure.
And I encourage in the book, and I've done it in my own practice, somebody's buying in a neighborhood, I'll just take my buyers over next door, knock on their door, say, hey, is there any reason why my people shouldn't buy the house next door? One time they said, well, yeah, there was a suicide in that home, and so the people didn't buy the house. Most of the time, the neighbors say, oh, yeah, it's great. Do they have any kids? That's kind of things. They're excited about having new neighbors. But it's an important thing to talk to the neighbors. To find out what's going on in the neighborhood. They might say, there's this noise. One time there was a house, I knocked on some neighbors, and there was a house across the street that had a ham radio, and they used some illegal amplification. And so the neighbors all said, well, every time he uses that radio, it screws up our TVs and our phones. So I told my buyer, and he said, no problem. He was an electrician. He says, I'll just build me a scrambler. So that's how he dealt with that. But see, that's just one thing you could learn by just knocking on a few doors and asking the neighbors. Right. That's just one of the recommendations in the book.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. What about recommendations on the other side? It's questions for that buyers should ask. What about sellers? You got any advice for sellers at all, or?
Well, I do. In the book, there's 90 tips for sellers.
Okay.
And the reason is that in your experience now, when you got a buyer, they buy a house and there is a question about it, they're always going to overestimate what's going to cost to fix it. So of course, in the book, I always recommend a pre-home inspection, offer home warranty, have all the papers available for copies of CC&Rs, homeowners associations, and of course, doing a pre-home inspection and repairing all the items is really key because people will net more money for that. And so also the book, because there's for sale by owners out there, there's tips in there, and I have an additional thing on my website on how to qualify buyers. It's not in the book, but it's available for free to anybody that wants it, on how to qualify buyers just like realtors do. And so there's some just tips like that just to be ready to come, because if you got a buyer that's informed, they got the book, they read through it, they got all these questions, they're going to be asking questions, and the seller's going to look silly if they don't have the answers to them. So there are, like I said, 90 tips in there to benefit the seller on how to be prepared for the well-informed buyer. And that'll make realtors love their sellers better if they got this kind of information, because they got all this stuff up front.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I see also that you refer realtors. Is that nationwide or just in, specific areas, or?
Well, it is. At the end of every chapter, there's a resource. And if we're talking about septic systems and plumbing, there's people that professionals that, but also have contact Kelly or your realtor, because realtors have that resource. I'd love to have, the tens of thousands of people buy that book. They get in the book, they're going to be overwhelmed by it because there's so much information. They need realtors, and they're going to email Kelly and say, "Hey, Kelly, I need a realtor in, Fort Myers, Florida, or someplace like it, and I can refer and make a referral business out of it." So that was part of the reason there too. But it always defers people to their realtor, because we're key to the transaction and key to making a smooth transaction happen.
Yeah, that's good advice. Good advice. So are you still in production?
Yes, I am. Yep, I'm still full-time. I'm only working 4 days a week, only because my wife, she takes Fridays off, so now I take Fridays off with her. But yeah, I'm in Keller Williams. I cap every year. Haven't capped this year, but I'm usually late in the year. Working every day, listing properties. Had one closing tomorrow. Got another one closing in a month. Yeah, full production and still working it.
Nice.
Although I don't knock on doors and chase for sell by owners and stuff like I used to.
Right.
I'm spending a little more time marketing the book and learning how to market that.
Yeah. So that's your big push. I mean, obviously, well, I don't know. I'm probably speaking out of turn because I haven't written a book. So, but I would think I would love to be able to write that book and that send me on in life. That'd be the next stage in life to be able to rely on that book. But then again, being in production, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, one thing I'm working on is developing a course for the book, because the book is for realtors. And so you get a copy of the book and it talks about where to get the answers. Well, it's amazing. I'm so old and done it for so long. All these realtors are younger than me, the most part. And they've never heard of Louisiana Pacific intercell siding, for example, the defective variety, manufactured in 85 and 95. And so it still is a material defect that needs to be disclosed. And the different kinds of septic systems and sewer systems, and with pumps and effluent tanks, and they've never heard of this stuff. And so do a course on not just only where to get the answer, but how to interpret those answers. I think that'd be very useful to do that. But that's a little more involved than even writing the book. But doing podcasts on each of these topics is one way I'm going to do that. Yeah. Just pick a topic and spend half an hour talking about it, because I can just talk forever on any given topic. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage you, as I do, obviously, to do so. There's an appetite for it, and plenty of people out there, and of course, plenty of realtors out there that hopefully that are enriching their minds. And well, you ought to maybe do an Audible. Have you thought about that?
Well, I've talked to some Audible people, and they said because of the book, it's got 1,000 questions in it. It might not lend itself to be very fun listening to. So I thought about taking and abbreviating the book as an Audible, and it would just kind of highlight the various topics. But still, somebody's going to have to get the book and look at the checklist to have to get the full benefit of it. But I have thought about doing that, but it wouldn't be all 1,000 questions. It'd be maybe 50 topics, and just some conversation about those topics and why they need to ask these questions. About that.
So is doing the podcast, and how else are you marketing the book?
Well, I've when COVID hit 2 years ago, I stayed home for a couple of months because I could.
Yeah.
Even though in Idaho we were a business that could go to work, and most of the agents in our office stayed working, and I just added 5,000 people to my LinkedIn.
Oh, nice.
I just sat down, mostly realtors and lenders, and I'm marketing to them, brokers, trainers, real estate brokerage owners, and those kind of people. I haven't been so totally successful in that, and I'm not quite sure why. But
Right.
you just keep writing different kind of marketing, and that's been part of the marketing for it.
Right. Okay. Well, Kelly, it's been great having you on. We're kind of winding down. Where can they buy the book? I know they can go to the site through there, and
Nope,
well, there you go. Hold
that
it up a
doesn't
little
work.
bit closer to.
There we go. I turned off the blur.
The blur.
So that's
yeah.
the book, and they can go to my website. It's vsmartinrealestate.com.
Okay.
Get the book
Icons
for half
2022.
price at Icons 2022. And the book retails on the website at $19.97. They can get it for $9.97 by going to that website, vsmartinrealestate.com. And I'm looking for feedback because I get a lot of feedback from different realtors around the country. In the book, there's about 20 different realtors that reviewed it for me. That's published in there, raving about the book, and from all over the country, different
Nice.
companies, different things. So it's certainly something that's needed. All my years of experience of being a real estate instructor, boy, people need this stuff because brokers they're not teaching this stuff because they're busy managing agents and creating sales and techniques and stuff. But this kind of information, that's a matter of disclosure. As anybody knows, in Idaho real estate law and probably other states, there's that thing about called should have known. You should have known this. That's right there in the real estate law book. And they don't know it, and they won't know it unless they read my book.
Yeah. Well, hang tight with me at the end of the podcast and give me a minute. I wanted to ask you a couple of other questions off the show a little bit, but thank you so much for being on the show today. I
appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, very, very valuable. I want to give you the opportunity because this is your show today. Is there anything that we didn't cover, or maybe there's something you want? I'll give you the last word. Is there anything you want to promote, talk about, or maybe it's your favorite pet, whatever you'd like.
Well, my background is cattle ranching and logging and those sort of things. But what people, if anybody knows me, they know I'm an avid gardener.
Wow.
So for my birthday, which is September this year, my wife gave me an improvement to my greenhouse. So we made it 4 feet longer, 2 feet taller, and we're going to have a year-round greenhouse up here in northern Idaho when that thing is done. And so I'm pretty excited about doing that. All my spare time out there, putting up the glass and building the shelving. And that's just something that we really enjoy doing.
Nice.
My wife and I, we're preppers. We like to have prepared food. We like to can our own food, and we're kind of food snobs because we're particular about what we eat. So that's just something that we're going to be doing. So yeah, I'm an avid gardener, and we just love doing that. Besides a little bit of traveling.
Fantastic.
So,
well, you get the chance to come down to Florida.
Yeah, we love it. Of course, it's been at top of everybody's minds, and we're just so devastated by what we're seeing on the TV, but we've always wanted to go to Florida. And I know a lot of friends of mine. We have friends down there right now. They're weathering the storm from right here, this local area, that just by chance they were down there. And we'd love to go see Florida. We've been there for a couple conventions in the past, GMAC convention one time, and we just love being down there. Went and saw alligators, probably stuff that's normal for you guys, but we enjoyed seeing that stuff.
I'm gonna go outside and wrestle one in about 10 minutes. What are you talking about?
That's right.
That's what we do.
Yep. All right.
Kelly, thanks so much for being on the show. I look forward to talking to you again.
All right, Tim. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.